Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, BethChatsBooks. Now, I haven't done a video as regularly in the last 2 weeks, so I think it's about 2 weeks since I've uploaded a video. So I'm kind of in the process at the moment of filming the vlog of the quarterfinals BookTube prize. So I'm doing non-fiction for that. So I have 6 books for that, and I am in the process of kind of reading them and vlogging them. So I feel like I am filming at the moment, but obviously I haven't put a lot out there. So in the last week or so, I felt really groggy, is the best word to describe. I felt really flat. I found reading a challenge, and it usually hasn't been, and my overall physical health feels a little bit off. So I don't feel really poorly, I just feel a bit headachy and a bit run down and a bit of a sore throat. And before you all ask, I don't think it's anything serious. I know a lot of people are kind of paranoid at the moment every time they feel under the weather that it might be COVID related. I highly doubt. I just feel very run down, and I don't know whether it's hitting the wall with coronavirus. I mean, since the beginning I have worked, so I don't know whether it's just feeling a little bit worn out. I know everyone's kind of mentally hitting the wall with coronavirus, and I think I've read a lot of non-fiction recently, and it's been very hard hitting about social justice and other things, and it's really kind of bummed me out a little bit. It's kind of made my mood go a bit flat. It's quite hard to get through loads of stories with just despondent storylines and trying to find change in the American justice system, and you kind of feel like you're reading things that are just really intense and there's nothing you can do about it in your little sphere at the moment, and then you're locked in with coronavirus and just feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So I'm excited to get back into fiction. I've loved reading non-fiction and it's really encouraged me to read more, but I need a palate cleansing reading at the moment. I can't read anything without feeling guilty that I need to finish the non-fiction. So I'm down to my last non-fiction book, which is Parkland by Dave Cullen. And I thought the best video I can do, because I'm not feeling creative at the moment, I'm feeling really run down, and when my mood doesn't feel right, I don't want to film. So I thought the best thing to do is to kind of talk about some of the books that are on my shelves that I've just kind of hapstazily pulled off the shelves, to talk about some of the fiction that I might read in June. Now I technically will be more freed up once I've put this judging in to read some more fiction. So I'm just going to get into it and we can just kind of go through some of the fiction. So some of these I have actually mentioned in the last month or so, but I've just not got around to reading them. So the first one, no surprise, is Hagseed by Margaret Atwood. So this is one of the very last of my library books. So obviously coronavirus happened and all the libraries shut. I solely got my way through most of my library books, but there was 2 outstanding before I started my non-fiction reads, and this was one of them. So this is Hagseed by Margaret Atwood, like I've just said, and this is a retelling of The Tempest. It's about a man who runs a theatre group, I think, and then he plots his revenge. I've just tried to look a little bit on the blurb, but it doesn't seem like that at all. So it says he was a director of a festival. Felix retreated to the backwoods hovel to lick his wounds and mourn his lost daughter and to plot his revenge. 12 years later, he appears in the shape of a theatre course at a prison. Here, Felix and the inmate actors will stage The Tempest, but obviously there's going to be some kind of reckoning and revenge there. So I don't actually know that much about this. I think this was the first one. There's a series, and feel free to link down below if you're obviously more educated than me and know the name of that series, but it was where they were getting authors to write retellings of Shakespeare plays, and apparently Margaret Atwood was asked quite early on, and she Bagsied The Tempest and said she wouldn't be part of it unless she got to do The Tempest. And obviously when you're Margaret Atwood you can make those kind of demands. So I think there are some other authors who did adaptations of Shakespeare plays, and I swear Jeanette Winterson is one of those authors. But don't quote me on that, because this is obviously just a bit of a hot mess of a video. So yeah, I'm gonna plan to read this when I can. And then the other one that was also a library book was The Starless C by Erin Morgenstern. I'm quite excited to get into this one because recently I've been watching Normal People and I've been obsessed. I kind of mentioned it in my last video. And I really want to escape into a different world. Now, with some of the non-fiction, for example, I've recently finished Solitary by Albert Woodfox, and that kind of goes into somebody's life that's completely removed from me. So some people would argue that non-fiction is kind of escapism, but it hasn't been giving me that satisfying craving. This is fantasy, young adult. I don't read usually any of those genres, but I'm craving a book where I can just go into a completely different world and just immerse myself. And normal people watching it has kind of been that binge of a romance that's got nothing to do with your own life and the really boring, mundane life I'm living of getting up, going to work, rinse, repeat. You know, it's been hot and steamy. And in a similar vein, not that I'm expecting this to be hot and steamy, but what I mean is this is about literally jumping into books, into different worlds. And I like the idea of completely just going off on a big adventure. I'm really in the mood for that at the moment. Some light-hearted fun as opposed to some of the more intense reads I've recently been reading. And because it's young adult and the font looks quite big, I think even though it is quite a big looking book, that I'll get through it quite quickly. So I think this will be quite high on my next reads list, because I'm really looking forward to trying something new and I'm really excited about this. So yeah, it's about a young person who goes to a library and finds an unmarked book. It doesn't have any coding, and they manage to take it out. I think it's a boy. I want to say it's a boy. Zachary Rawlins, and he takes it out anyway, and they find out it's kind of like his book. It's a book about him, and then through that he ends up jumping into other worlds through books. It's a very bad synopsis, but I know lots of people have been reading this, loving it. I never ever read The Night Circus, which was her first book, so if I like this I will try and get The Night Circus from the library when they open again. But there we go. So they're the only library books left, because I took out quite a lot, but I managed to read quite a lot. I can't even remember when I took those books out. Was it April? Was it March? I don't know. Anyway, then I have another book that my colleague recommended at work and she gave it to me, and that's Ruth Jones's Never Greener. This also sounds really fun. I didn't actually think this was a fiction until I took this home, because my colleague was telling me, oh, I really loved this, and considering it was Ruth Jones, I really got into it. And I had this perception for some strange reason that it was a biography, because a lot of celebrities like Ruth Jones and Peter Kay and David Walliams. I kind of had this perception, even though David Walliams does children books, but you know what I mean, those kind of figures do biographies. Everybody has a biography, don't they? So I just assumed when she was talking about this book that it was a biography, but it's actually a fiction. So this is about Kate, who in her younger years had a passionate affair with a married man called Callum. And then it ended in heartbreak. 17 years later, she's married, moved on, had a child, and she ends up finding Callum again. And it's whether they restart this steamy affair or whether she's grown out of it, and looking at that dilemma in her life. So it sounds quite juicy, because I'm also craving, as much as I'm craving a bit of fantasy world, I am craving a romance. And like I said, with normal people, that's just been so immersive to have a romance. And again, romance I don't really read so much of, and this sounds like a contemporary, but also with that bit of a romance element. So I'm quite interested to see what happens there. And then another book that my mum gave me, because she's recently finished it, and it's really hot off the press. I think a lot of people are talking about this at the moment, and that's The Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeil. So this isn't what I expected. I think this is a historical fiction, actually, and for some reason I didn't think it was going to be a historical fiction. For some bizarre reason I thought it was going to be thriller-esque. I don't know. Sometimes the way things are marketed and people talk about them, you just completely mis-genre them, don't you? But yeah, so it's set in London in 1850. It's about the Hyde Park. It says the city, the greatest spectacle in Hyde Park. Iris, an aspiring artist, is in the encounter of a moment, but for Silas, a collector entranced by the strange and beautiful, this meeting marks a new beginning. Iris is a model for pre-Raphaelite artist Louis Frost. She agrees on the condition that he will also teach her to paint. So it's about art. obsessive and darkness, it says something there, the vivid chaos of Victorian London, a passionate love story and a thrilling tale. Oh, so it is a bit thriller-esque then. There we go. Somebody told me it was quite dark. I love these end papers of butterflies. They are just stunning. So this really does sound like my kind of bag of tricks. I don't read as much historical fiction as I should do, but when I do, I love it. I love things like the Essex Serpents, and it kind of seems like it will be a historical fiction with that darker element, which the Essex Serpent and those kind of books previously have had for me. My mum said it was beautiful, and she loved it. And we have very similar tastes. We're quite similar people in some ways, which sounds stupid because she's my mum, but I mean, we're kind of on the same level. So that's a really good recommendation for me. If she loves it, I'm going to try it. Then I've got some others. Most of these are books that before the lockdown, friends and family have given me and said, you'll really love this. And never got around to it because then I had to read these non-fictions and the coronavirus happened, and I've really slowed down on reading and I've been really disappointed about it, but it's just been hard to manage. So again, you've already seen this one. This is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I got this when I went to Budapest, which is about 2 months ago now, which is absolutely insane. And this is it's set in the North Carolina coast in 1969. There is a man, Chase Andrews, who's found dead, and Kaya Clark, called the Marsh Girl. She's infamous where she lives, is suspected of killing him. And then we go on this romp. You know the drill by now. Most of these books end up taking you on some kind of romp. So this seems really interesting. I was going to take this out of the library, and I did many, many moons ago actually. And I had so many books and somebody requested it and I didn't have a chance to read it. And what's bizarre is actually feeling it in my hand now. It feels really small and compact. And I remember taking it out of the library thinking it was going to be really chunky and big. But it might just be misleading small font. Yeah, it's still around 300 pages. Oh, no, 350. So it is actually fairly big. But I think the hardback made it seem bigger. And I remember reading the first few pages and really thinking I would love it. These kind of books are a bit a hot topic at the moment, hot ticket, you know, kind of The Water Dancer, which I read for my first round of judging for the Fiction BookTube Prize. That and The Underground Railroad and the other Colson Whitehead, The Nickel Boys, and this all kind of have similar theme about race and identity in the South of America, or in America in general, and the kind of... I'm reading a lot at the moment that makes me think a lot about the relationship between non-whites in America. Obviously How to Be an Anti-Racist, Solitary, Charged. This fiction and non-fiction for me are blending, as this is a bit of a hot ticket and topic in the past and in the present. So yeah, I think I really like this. I know from experience that kind of story and that plight of struggle I really enjoy reading about in a non-morbid way, but I do really engage with that. So yeah, looking forward to reading this. And this got really, really high praise. This was everywhere for a really long time. So maybe this will do something that exceeds expectation for me. We'll see, you know. And then I've got some others here. These are really disgusting and gross and I feel really bad. These are those kind of hardbacks that are matte and they've been sat on my shelves for so long that they kind of feel gross now and a little bit dusty, so I apologise. So I have The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. I got this for my birthday in January. I really want to reread The Handmaid's Tale before I read this. And it's weird because this got a lot of buzz. Obviously it won the Man Booker with Bernardine Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other, which was controversial, and I really think upon reading Girl, Woman, Other she should have just won it on her own. But I do want to read this, and it's had really mixed bags. A bit like Marmite, this one. Most people have either been in two camps, absolutely loved it, thought it was amazing, or could not see the point of why she did a follow-up. Well, it's not, well, it is kind of a follow-up, isn't it? But it's not, because it's kind of after the events have happened. But Weirdly, I've put this off because I've not been as compelled as I thought I would. I've dipped tentatively into bits of Atwood, but there are a lot more books that I'm eager to read than this one. I loved Handmaid's Tale, and I read Cat's Eye and was a little bit meh about it, but that's because it wasn't really classic Atwood, that one. And I really want to try some of her sci-fi because so many people said it's fantastic. Things like Hagseed I wanted to get to. I've got Elias Gray, I don't know how you say that. I'm really interested in that one, so you know what, I can put this off, but it is on my radar to read. Maybe when the library's open again I might take Handmaid's Tale out, because I swear I had a copy on my hands and knees looking through all my shelves and I can't find it, so maybe I didn't bring it with me when we moved recently. Well, we moved before Christmas, but still recent, everything's just blurring. So yeah, there's this one obviously. And then I also I got this for my birthday. Also, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. Just don't look too much at the cover because that doesn't look, it does look a bit dusty. This room seems to always feel dusty and I air it out, and I probably need to look after my shelves better. Anyhow, this is really short. When this came out, it was a bit of a hot ticket in town to get your hands on. But Ocean Vuong was a poet, and this is their first experience of writing a fiction. Some people have loved it, some people have hated it. Really wanted to read it. I was really intrigued by it. I think it's a series of letters that the character writes. I don't know whether it's to the mother. Family secrets, that kind of thing. I really like family secrets as a subgenre, I guess, of fiction, so be interested to see whether I enjoy this. Again, I got this around Easter time, so it's fairly recent. This is American Dirt by Janine Cummings. I purely wanted to read this because of all the controversy. I did mention in a previous video, I showed this and somebody told me to start listening to the Book Riot to find out about this. I've ended up going through the back catalogue of the Book Riot and got distracted, so I believe it's about somebody that's writing about an experience that isn't their own. It's culturally, vaguely something to do with somebody writing about, I don't know whether it's the Latin American community. There's some kind of racial community that the person doesn't belong to that's writing about in this novel, and then it brought up this whole thing, can you write about something if you don't belong? Can you write about that culture or that experience if you don't fit in that camp? And I know that Edna O'Brien's Girl got a lot of criticism for that because she's a white woman that was writing about some of the issues that happened in Boko Haram when women were taken, that heartbreak and that situation. And a lot of people think she had no right to talk about that, which I read the book and I really enjoyed the book. It was heartbreaking. But I'm not necessarily in the camp of belief that you can't write about something that you don't belong to or you didn't necessarily experience in your own life. So anyway, I don't want to get into that, but that's why this has been a bit of a hot button. But before that, I believe it was getting good press, and I think this is some kind of thriller. Her 8-year-old son Luca has left. For him, she will find the strength to keep running, so I just want to read it and see if it's any good. And then the next few ones. So my nana gave me this a while back, which is The Suspect by Fiona Barton. She said it's a really easy thriller to read. My nana's quite into true crime and thrillers in general. So she said that this was really good fun. It's a standalone, I believe. It says 2 18-year-old girls go missing when they go on their gap year in Thailand. Their families are thrust into the international spotlight. Journalist Kate Waters wants to be the first one to get the story, discover the truth, yada yada. You know, like most of us know the formula for a thriller in some capacity. Shari Lapina has put utterly engrossing. C.L. Taylor, clever twisting whodunit. So, you know, this would be a good palate cleanser for me because I find some thrillers, I don't love them as much as some people out there do, but I do really enjoy reading them to get myself back into reading sometimes because they are quite quick paced. So there's that one. I still have Patrick Melrose Volume 1 by Edward St. Aubyn. This says, now a major Sky original production. My mum said try this and see if you like it and then you can carry on, because I believe it is a series. She said it's really, really well done. She gave me this months ago. And this is over 400 pages. Yeah, I think a lot of people will either know who this is or not, but volume 1, the first 3 novels in the Patrick Melrose series, it says here. Never mind, bad news and some hope, so I didn't know there was such a back catalogue. But if I like it, I'll carry on. There's that one. And then the next 2, my dad has given me this to read, which is Talking with Psychopaths and Savages Beyond Evil, A Deeper Journey into the Minds of the Most Cold-Blooded Killers by Christopher Berry D. We're a weird family. We like true crime. We like things to do with psychopaths. So he got this for his birthday a while back, read it, really enjoyed it, and said I would love it because he knows I'm really interested in that kind of thing. He's got other ones that he's tried to pitch to me as well, but I've told him I've got a lot of reading to do, so I'll get round to this whenever. It seems quite short. Yeah, it's around 200 pages. Just about, he's got a series, it says on the back here, talking with female serial killers, talking with psychopaths and savages, A Journey into the Evil Mind, and this one's Beyond Evil. So that goes with that one, talking with serial killers, world's most evil. So I believe he's a journalist and he kind of interviews them, and it says this is not a book for the squeamish. He does a chilling narrative of the forensic examination of killers and their crimes. So if you're not into that, you probably wouldn't like this, but I'm into that kind of stuff, so I think I'll give it a read at some point. And then the last book I found purely by accident recently, and that was Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts. My sister loves this book. I found it in her book box recently, and I thought that maybe if this lockdown goes on for a while, then I might give this one a bash, because obviously it's huge. But it's quite an old one, this book now. But my mum and my sister really enjoyed this book, and they said that I really would. And I always didn't really know, and my sister was pitching it to me a lot because she likes a lot of self-help and she's not a big reader. I didn't know whether I'd actually like this, but it says, in the early 80s, Gregory David Roberts, an armed robber and heroin addict, escaped from Australian prison to India, where he lived in a Bombay slum. There he established a free health clinic and also joined the mafia, working as a money launderer, forger and street soldier. He found time to learn Hindi, fall in love and spend time being worked over in an Indian jail. Then, in case anyone thought he was slacking, he acted in Bollywood and fought with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. Amazingly, Roberts wrote Shantaram 3 times after prison guards trashed the first 2 versions. It's a profound tribute to his willpower, at once a high-kicking, eye-gorging adventure, a love saga and a savage yet tenderly lyrical fugitive vision. So, there we go. You know, if I have time, I will try and read this book. So there are all the books. I have a lot of unread books on my shelves, a lot of classics and things like that, which at some point I will go through and start reading and getting rid of. But here's just a flavour of some of the books that I might start reading when I'm free to read fiction again. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video. Bye now.